So the rest of Mead's analysis of symbolic interactionism includes 1. The self, 2. Society, and 3. The basic principles of symbolic interactionism. So first, the self. Mead talks about the self as being a social process, meaning a process of interaction with others. He described 2 stages. 1, the play stage, and 2, the game stage. In the play stage is where we take on roles that help us to adjust who we are as we understand and evaluate ourselves through those roles. So for example, when children play, they often take on roles of, adults. Maybe playing the roles of a family, of a mother and father, and those roles help them to create an understanding for themselves of who they are and who their mom and dads are. The second, or the other stage that he talks about is the game stage, and that is where he talks about creating this general other, or this collective attitude of a group. He uses the analogy of a baseball team to illustrate this concept, and that is that all the members of the team share a common attitude or common collective way of thinking, and that's also how we can come to what he calls a complete self, because we are part of a community, and that's how we can create ourselves. And so he really stresses that point of community, of how we being a member of a community helps us to identify who we are or develop a self. He also talks about the I and the me phases of that process, the I being the individual to others, and then the me being the set of attitudes of others that you adopt or you assume. And it's through this whole social process that Mead says that society is able to function effectively. So that leads us to the second thing that he talks about, which is society. And society is another ongoing social process that Mead talks about. And she emphasizes that society precedes the mind and self. And it is through institutions that education, through those institutions, internalize those common habits of a community. He doesn't focus too much on what called the macro aspect of society or the large picture, but more a broad analysis of society and a more specific to each individual kind of approach to his explanation for society. And finally, he outlines the basic principles of symbolic interactionism, which include 5 basic principles, and they are 1, the capacity for thought. And so he stresses that humans, unlike animals, possess this capacity to not only think but to reflect and to evaluate our thoughts, as well as develop our mind through that process. So it's a continuing process of where we are evaluating and reflecting. So that one crucial point. The second is the thinking and interaction. He emphasizes that thinking and interaction is a dynamic process, which means that we are constantly adapting and changing how we think and how we interact with others, with things that change, perhaps maybe in the environment. And then he also talks about 3 types of objects, which are physical, social, and abstract. So physical include all the physical things, a tree, a rock, etc. Social have to do with our relationships, father and mother, and abstract has to do with things that are not tangible, ideas or concepts, values, those kinds of things. So that second one is the thinking and interaction. The third is the learning of meanings and symbols. Now this one has to do with how we use symbols to communicate. in a general sense, it's talking about language, communication through words, sounds, and it's through that we have symbolic interactionism. And then finally, the last two is the action and interaction, which she explains that there's covert and overt behavior, being covert being the thinking aspect of behavior, and overt behavior being what we actually do and manifest. And it's through it's the engagement in this process that we create a mutual influence. So we are all affecting one another through this process. And then making choices is the final point, and that is that we can form new meanings with symbols. So we have the ability to choose what meanings we ascribe to things, and that is another very important and final point of symbolic interactionism. And that's the rest of Mead's analysis and explanation of the self, society, and the mind, and it's been good. Good, thanks, see ya.